for yet another episode of No Free Lunch, Economics for a Fallen World. Dr. Heyman there, Professor Guernsey here. Glad to have you. Market process, we've talked a little bit about that, so forth, but there's this term called real time, etc. Explain that a bit, please.
Sure. You know, in our previous videos, we introduced you to supply and demand diagrams, and that's a world that is, as we would say, would be fairly static. Nothing changes generally. Then we might make one change. We might say, hey, let's say there's a change in tastes and preferences, and people desire good. And in our previous chapters, we talked about how you would shift the demand curve in response to that. But while we're doing that, everything else stays the same. That is a useful model. We learn a lot. In fact, if everybody understood supply and demand, especially our politicians, I think the world would be a much better place. That model is, as I often say, it's simple, but it's not simplistic. There's real meaningful information you get. However, we need to understand its limitations, and that's what we're going to focus on today. It's at best a limited model to think about how things behave. In real time, and it's distinct from the static world, everything's changing. And that's the world we live in. We live in the moment of right now. We're informed by the past, but we're looking for the future, and we're thinking about what we should do differently. Today we looked back yesterday and something went wrong, and we should do something different today. And we're all just a little bit confused as we walk through life. But we're always trying to do the best we can. So, I would assert that science in general, it just is trying to trace out cause and effect nonstop. We try to find causality between one action and that particular means. Did it lead to the end that we have? Mm-hmm. And so we're constantly evaluating. And the same thing happens, of course, in our economic world, and indeed all of our life. And economics being a science of choice, we're looking at the past trying to say, how do I get to a better future in light of how things worked out the last time? So we have a figure in the book, and I'll bring it up now and maybe talk to it, but it may be helpful to you. I don't know, but we'll see. So yeah, if we start here in the center, have to get a good movie clip in here. We have our hero that's acting away, and he's in the fight today. In the here and now, and this is where we live. We live in the present. We might call that knowledge in action. Well, we're constantly today we're developing our thoughts about what we're going to do tomorrow. We're thinking and we're acting today to plan for the future. But while we're even planning for tomorrow, we're living in today and we're living in this world. Dr. Guernsey and I are doing this in our own school here at Cedarville. We're thinking about what we're going to do next semester, but I had to go to class earlier, yesterday actually, and we're implementing that plan as well. And some of that it's being informed by what didn't go so well in the previous semester with our curriculum or my previous lesson. And this is the same thing that happens in business as well. Everybody is evaluating what they're thinking about doing. It's informed in part by what they need to do differently from the back. And so this is all in the present, and this is where we live. But that's informed, of course, all of these steps are informed both by the past and the future. So let's see how. In the past, we have what I would call the knowledge in the rearview mirror. What are we looking back at? We're looking back to see, okay, we thought we had a certain causality between means and ends. Did that work out? Was that connection as good as we thought it would be? We had some understanding of the process we were working, some sort of technical knowledge that we had a baseline. We had specific knowledge of the circumstances, and that informed what we were going to do. We had our hopes and dreams that in part guided what we wanted to do in the present. Don't discount, that sounds kind of fluffy, but don't discount how people's individual dreams. I assure you, for instance, Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. It's not because of link between means and ends. He wants to put somebody on another planet. That plays into that as well. And then we're informed by our successes and failures. So we're constantly looking backwards to see what in that didn't work out as well as we could, that we can revise in the present to be able to have a better future. But we're still looking in what I call knowledge in the crystal ball, looking out to that future, trying to anticipate what could be there. And even though this is future, we're doing that today. We're dreaming. Most of us, some of us daydream too often, and the Proverbs warns us about that, by the way. But we're constantly imagining what do we need to do differently? this didn't work out so well. I better do this tonight. I better remember to do this and get ready for tomorrow. We're anticipating what future needs would be. As we talked about entrepreneurs in a previous video, we're appraising what's the new realities of market prices. What are the opportunities there? We're going to look at our ability to shape the future. I see this happening. Is there some way I can make a play to make a difference in this? We still have our hopes and dreams. They may have been calibrated, right? Because of what happened in the past. And also, we're going to have to take an estimation of what others are going to do. We have to anticipate in a market setting what our competitors might do. We're going to have to anticipate what would our customers want. All of these things are forward-looking. For the most part, entrepreneurship is forward-looking. But boy, it's informed by the past, and you're always acting in the present. And that's why this time dimension is a really interesting thing, because we live in the now. We look back in the past to guide us towards the future, but we're living for those expectations of what could happen in the future as well. So that's kind of what we mean by both a market process and this idea of real time. This model, as I think you can see, is a lot different from a supply and demand diagram showing us an equilibrium outcome. There's a lot more happening here. And this is more descriptive of reality.
Traditional supply and demand is kind of static. Then you say one thing changes, everything else remains unchanged. I don't think you used the word dynamic, but this seems like a very dynamic process.
It's a very dynamic process. And this is the world we live in.
Right.
You can make some simplifications for a model to get some useful information and help shape how you think about the future. It's not, even the estimates of other people's plans. You might even kind of imagine what that would do to demand, and you would say, well, hey, if there's going to be a higher demand, I can probably sell it at a higher price. It's not that this is just much more useful, much more realistic, but much more complex, much more difficult. Doesn't lend itself to an easy answer.
I'm wondering if there's an analogy to the way we ought to drive. Hang with me on this for a moment. We're in the car, we're driving, we're in the present, but we need to look in the rearview mirror to see where we've been, and we also need to assess where we're going and what's happened in the past, and where the road's going in the future is going to inform what we're going to do today.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect example, but I would assert to you even more broadly. Almost anything you're doing has this kind of characterization. Earlier today, confession to you out in Filmland, we redid a video that I messed up from a previous time. That was a past, and I was informed because I knew what was going to happen in the future. I wanted to make a better video for you all later. Not that you maybe think any of these videos are good. That's a different question. So almost any activity, because this is the way we all live. This is what we're doing. I suspect any of our students that are watching this are saying, I can't wait till Heyman is done talking so I can go do something different. You're already anticipating what that future might be. Or better yet, I'm certain you're waiting with bated breath for the next exciting video in No Free Lunch, but you're still anticipating the future.
There you go. Well, thanks for joining us in the present. May you have a great future, and we'll see you next time.